New details on how this guerrilla fighter was able to pull off a great escape that a former congressman the FARC was keeping in the jungle for nearly 9 years. Now, days after the rescue, Colombia is captivated by the story of Isaza. Isaza is considered a hero with a heart for helping Oscar Tulio Lizcano escape. The former congressman, who it turns out had helped Isaza's mother years before with a job and a place to live. Our Ana Maria Hernandez is here with more on his story. Ana Maria?
Thank you, Brian. Isaza is telling the story of his escape with the captive he was in charge of watching, and he's calling his former colleagues in the park to give up their fight.
Isaza's real name is Wilson Bueno. He said he decided to quit the FARC last week, and he said his captive, Oscar Tulio Lizcano, was a key part of his decision. Lizcano was in so shape, so I asked him if he thought he could run with me. Isaza and Lizcano fled the prison camp in the wee hours of last Saturday morning. I was in charge of setting up the guard watching at the camp, so I knew when no one would be watching. I grabbed Lizcano by his arm, and I told him not to make any noise. Then we ran. Isaza, the hostage jailer, had become his protector. I told him that if we saw the army, he had to hold on close to me. They walked through the jungle with nothing to eat for 2 days. Isaza said he was ready for the worst to happen. I had 2 grenades and a gun. I was prepared to fight, because when you desert, you have just 2 options: give up or die. Why did the jailer and the hostage get along so well? No one talked to him. I started feeling sorry for him. Isaza says the army was closing in onto the FARC, cutting off their supply lines. During these tough times, Isaza and Lizcano became friends. We played chess. He told me stories, he told me jokes, we had fun. Isaza's commander told him to kill Lizcano if the Colombian army got close, but he never thought of doing it, because during all those months of talking, Isaza and Lizcano realized they knew each other, and that Lizcano had helped Isaza's mother years ago to find a job and a place to live. Now, Isaza will get nearly $500,000 in reward money and a new life in France. However, he said he's more worried about providing for his family here in Colombia. First, I want to give them a house. Then, we will see what's next.
Isaza was the commander of 18 rebel fighters from the Aurelio Rodriguez front. He says the FARC is facing its worst moment and that the movement is falling apart. He called his former fighter friends to load down their guns and surrender. Back to you, Brian.
Thanks very much, Ana Maria. Now here's a look at other stories making news from Colombia. After days of marches and rallies in Cali, the indigenous are going back to their reservations. They're hoping to meet with President Uribe and La Maria Pindamo this weekend to express their concerns. Police arrest alias Tattoo, the head of a dangerous band of criminals pulling off Paseo Millonario robberies in the capital city. They say they caught him in the act of forcing someone to drive from ATM to ATM, draining their accounts of cash. A woman who was critically injured by sicarios or hitmen was shot and killed in her hospital bed when one of the hitmen dressed up as a doctor and made his way into the emergency room to finish her off. Police seized a cache of FARC weapons, including grenades, rockets, and other weapons that were to be used in a planned attack on the Cali mayor's office and other downtown buildings. The former mayor of Puerto Colombia, Atlantico, Carlos de la Cruz, has to answer some tough questions about properties he sold back in 1997 that may have been connected to a drug mafia. And the mayor of Bucaramanga is working on a plan to install free internet access all over the city with the help of impressive telecommunications. The primary benefit will be for students who can access the internet at a number of different hotspots planned throughout the city. Our next story is about making the best of what could be the worst working conditions. It's about the people who work at Doña Juana. It's a huge dump on the outskirts of Bogota. That story from RCN's Andres Restrepo.
Thanks, Brian. Chucho is a happy costeño who guards Doña Juana, the largest dump yard in Colombia and one of the biggest in the world. Hundreds of thousands of tons of trash make up what he calls his office. Hello to all my family in Mompox, Bolivar, and all the costeños, he says. 40 people work very hard to take care of the trash of Bogota, and even though they work with garbage, they make the best of it. I have to coordinate where the trash gets dumped, so the trucks don't get buried in it. All workers of Doña Juana get regular health checks to make sure they are not being infected by the garbage. I've never been sick working here. I always get a shot to prevent getting sick. The dump yard works 24/7, and these hard workers claim to be proud of being Mrs. Juana's employees. I get the food for my family from the trash, he says. I like working here and prefer to be here than anywhere else. Colombia is full of hard-working people, and this is an example of how the Colombians make the best of their circumstances. Besides the 40 people you met, Doña Juana has 200 other people who help keep the junkyard running 24/7. For RCN News in English, I'm Andres Restrepo.
Thanks, Andres. I'm Brian Andrews reporting from the RCN News Center in Bogota. We leave you today with a really crazy story out of the coast. We call it the RCN News in English Catch of the Day.
Cuentan que hubo pescador barquero que pescaba de noche en el río.
It happened this morning at a lake in Sempué Sucre near the coast, where a fisherman named Juan Marscal dragged up something weird in his net. Here it is, a fish with 2 legs. No one's ever seen anything like it. It's a cross between a fish and a frog. Well, Juan and his friend Jonathan were out fishing for Boca Chicos, and then they pulled up this weird-looking one. It has frog legs coming out of its gills. Well, now Juan and his friend Jonathan are the talk of the town with their catch, which has been nicknamed the Little Monster. That's RCN News in English today, bringing Colombia's stories to the world.
Mas por el río, desde esa noche, el pescador